I never imagined that one evening could change everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Yet there I was, standing at the entrance of a crowded party, feeling a calm certainty that had been missing for years. Her name is Melissa. We had been married for 8 years. On paper, our life looked perfect, a beautiful house in the suburbs, steady careers we both enjoyed, sunny vacations, and lively family gatherings. But perfection is a mask, and under it, I had been feeling the cracks for some time. It was a slow, creeping realization that the woman I loved was slipping away. She had grown distant, defensive, secretive. It started with small things, late nights at work that didn't quite add up. Phone calls she'd take in another room, her voice dropping to a whisper. Messages on her phone that she'd quickly delete before I could even glance over. I knew something was wrong long before that night. The signs were subtle, but they were undeniable. They were like tiny cuts, each one small on its own, but together, they left a deep wound. I tried to confront her, of course. I tried to communicate, to salvage what I thought was a partnership built on love and trust. I asked her what was wrong, why she seemed so far away. Every single time, she'd brush me off. She'd call me paranoid, laugh it off as if I were making up stories, or turn it back on me, saying I was being too sensitive or insecure. It was frustrating, and honestly, it was heartbreaking. I stopped arguing. I stopped pleading. I realized that words were getting me nowhere. So instead, I started paying attention, really paying attention. And then I learned the truth. Melissa was cheating. It wasn't a single dramatic moment where I caught her red-handed. There was no theatrical discovery. It was more like putting together a puzzle, piece by painful piece. The breadcrumbs were there all along. The credit card receipts for dinners I wasn't at, the strange patterns in her schedule, the vague excuses that never quite made sense. It all pointed to the same devastating reality. For months, I wrestled with a storm of emotions. There was a raw, visceral anger that made me want to scream. There was a profound heartbreak that felt like a physical weight on my chest. And there was a sense of disbelief, a part of me that just couldn't accept that this was happening to us. A part of me wanted to confront her publicly, to humiliate her, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused me. I imagined shouting matches, dramatic scenes, exposing her lies to everyone we knew. But another part of me, a quieter, more strategic part, wanted something different, something subtler, something far more impactful than a moment of rage. I realized that a screaming match would only give her more ammunition to paint me as the unstable one. It would give her control of the narrative. And I was done letting her control anything. That's how I ended up at that party. It wasn't my party. It wasn't my crowd. In fact, it was a work event for a colleague of hers, the kind of gathering I usually avoided. But I knew she would be there, and I had very carefully planned my entrance. I wasn't going to show up looking defeated or heartbroken. I was going to show up renewed. I wasn't alone. By my side was a woman who could turn heads anywhere she went. Her name was Aina, a friend I'd reconnected with recently. She was breathtaking, not just because she was beautiful, but because she radiated confidence, elegance, and that unmistakable presence that comes from someone who knows their own worth. She knew my situation, and she agreed to come with me, not as a romantic interest, but as a symbol of my new beginning. Melissa saw us the moment we stepped through the door. I watched her from across the room. For a fraction of a second she froze, her eyes widened. The practiced, social smile she wore faltered and then collapsed. She realized instantly that this wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just bad luck. She knew I had orchestrated this moment, that every detail was meticulously planned. I walked in slowly, confidently, my arm linked with Anna's. Every step felt like a reclamation of the power I had given away. Every glance I caught from Melissa reminded me that she could no longer control the narrative. She could no longer tell me I was paranoid when the truth was standing right in front of her. The party continued around us. The music was blaring. People were laughing and chatting. But for me, time slowed down. All I could focus on was Melissa's reaction. She tried to hide it at first. She forced a laugh, turned to a friend with a fake greeting, trying to act like she hadn't seen a thing. But I could see through the performance. I knew her too well. She was completely caught off guard, and in that moment, her guilt, her fear, and her regret were as clear as day on her face. She was trapped. I didn't speak to her immediately. I didn't need to. My presence, coupled with the confident, beautiful woman beside me, said everything that needed to be said. I felt no need to confront her, to yell, to plead for answers. Silence can be louder than any words, and in that crowded, noisy room, my silence was deafening. Over the next hour, she attempted to maintain her composure. She flitted around the room, laughing a little too loudly with her friends, even trying to make small talk with me when our paths crossed. Every word she spoke was measured, cautious, a subtle apology disguised as casual conversation. "Oh, hey, I didn't know you were coming," she'd say with a strained smile. I played along. I smiled back, nodded, and chatted briefly, but I kept my distance. I let her feel the consequences of her choices without ever raising my voice. She had spent months deceiving me, brushing off my feelings and lying through omissions and subtleties. Now, she was finally realizing that I was no longer someone she could manipulate or dismiss. I wasn't the paranoid husband anymore. I was a man who knew the truth and had decided to move forward on his own terms. By the end of the evening, as people started to leave, Melissa approached me privately near the exit. Her voice was shaky, the confident, dismissive tone she usually carried was completely absent. I didn't expect you to bring her," she said, her eyes darting towards Anna, who was politely waiting a few feet away. I looked at her calmly, letting the silence hang in the air for a moment before I spoke. "Did you expect me to ignore what you've done, to just pretend it never happened?" She stammered, searching for words. I thought—" I cut her off, but not with anger, gently. "You made your choices, Melissa. And now I've made mine. This is my choice." Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of shame and a dawning, painful realization. But there was nothing left for her to apologize for, not really. The damage was done. By showing up that night, I had already regained control of the situation. I had reclaimed my dignity, my confidence, and the power she had tried to erode for months. Walking away from that conversation, I felt a strange and profound sense of closure. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliating her in front of her friends. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who had repeatedly chosen betrayal over partnership.